And we're live. Hello, everybody. Sorry we're
Hey,
late.
everybody. It happens.
Yeah, sometimes.
I'm gonna blame my coming blizzard just for the heck of
You
it,
have a
because that
blizzard?
it's coming. Yep.
Dude, the weather here just makes me forget that winter exists.
You want to come visit? Because this will help.
Oh, what is the weather here? Um, yeah, it was actually cold today, I would say. It was only 12 degrees,
Wait,
Celsius, 12 Celsius. So that was
I
cold.
appreciate you doing the conversion for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's like 54 Fahrenheit. 12 Celsius. That was the so today was a cold day.
Uh,
Tomorrow it's going to be 21, I think.
to be fair, it was also 12 here for a short time today. Um, and tomorrow, I think it's supposed to be in the minus 15 range. Uh, but then there's a wind chill on top of that. So we'll probably get to around minus 25.
That's exciting.
So exciting.
Yeah, so you're going to be um your the amount negative is going to be roughly our amount positive in the
Yeah.
temperature. So
And I'll be outside doing my horse dentist is coming tomorrow. So it'll be a blizzard. It'll be minus 25 with the wind chill. And I'll be outside getting my horse's teeth fixed.
yeah, people want freedom units. So the freedom units. Uh So when I say 21, that's like 69 degrees. Yeah. Which I think is roughly perfect. I really like the weather around 70. I don't really like it when it gets to like 80. I think it's too hot. Whatever.
I much prefer the weather around 80, for the record.
Okay. I just think it's
But
too hot. I think it's so hot. Especially if you live somewhere humid, where it's just
I
like
know
miserable.
where you actually get to sweat instead of shiver. Yeah, it's horrible.
How many loaves? How many loaves is 80 degrees? I don't know. Like seven, maybe seven loaves of heat.
We need a loaf scale.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to measure the temperature of a loaf. Would you measure the engine temperature, the temperature of its fire? Because if it's burning, it's going to be pretty hot. I don't know.
It's a good point. It's like how many loaves does it take to heat up the room to that temperature?
Oh, you want to be an apprentice? You want to spend your entire life reading telegram and mapping because we do have slots in the basement still.
We have openings available. There are chains not attached to anybody yet.
Yes, unfortunately. So to be serious, we do have openings for help. There are several types of jobs that we need done. One job we need is someone to do the overnight reports that come from the governors, etc., of shellings, missile strikes, drone attacks, etc. Um, it's typically around. It depends on how focused you are, but it can take between 1 and 4 hours of work per day to do that. And currently, I do it by myself. It's really stressful, on top of everything else. But anyways, so we need someone to do that. We also we do what we call breaking down videos, which is when you watch a video and break out all the timestamps. So you say like, um, and then like you say what happened in each timestamp. So it's like this, like in like between like 5 seconds and 10 seconds, a loaf got hit by a drone. Between 10 seconds and 15 seconds, a house got hit by a drone. So it's like that basically. Um, and then if we can find someone who can do those video breakdowns, if you do enough of them, you will learn what videos are new and old, etc. And once you learn that, you can start learning to do things that are more useful. Um, Not to say that breaking down videos isn't useful, because it actually is, but it's a good starting point. And from there, you can learn, or we can teach you geolocation stuff, identifying vehicle stuff. But you really have to look at a ton of video and figure out what video is new and old. And really the best way to watch a lot of video is by breaking it down, because it makes you focus on what's happening. And once you break down the videos for like a week or two, you start to get a hang of what's new and old, and then you can start doing more useful stuff. Because you don't really want to immediately jump into geolocations, because you might just end up wasting your time geolocating a bunch of really old footage that isn't useful to anybody. But so yeah, these are the sorts of openings that we have. Um, yeah. So if anyone's interested in that sort of stuff, of doing, um, so like the first job is the overnight reports. That is basically a skillless job. You don't need to know anything to do that. All you got to do is,
I can do that.
yeah, you just
That's why he's
you
such
read
a
it,
skill.
you put the data into the spreadsheet, you format it correctly, which is probably the hardest part, and it's not even difficult, and then you map it basically. So that's not hard. Like the hardest part is like learning where all the towns are, and that's just memorization. Like I remember when I first started tracking the war, and I had no clue where any town was, and it felt horrible. But honestly, after like a week or two, you get the hang of it, because very often something happens in the same town very regularly. It's not often that things happen in places you never heard of. So if you do like a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, you learn where all the common places are, and then if you see a place that you've never heard of, it's probably right next to one of those common places. So you just look at the common places and zoom out a little bit, and you'll find it. But anyways, that job is skillless, and it's not that hard. And breaking down video is a good starting point for learning geolocations, etc. And also, it's just incredibly useful for us, because right now, breaking down video is one of our main bottlenecks of being able to do more work. And we would also like to train people to do more geolocations, and you really need to watch a ton of video to geolocate. So that's a good place to start.
Reliably informed that we have an opening for a bartender. It's a basement bar, but here the chain there is a little bit more. You get fed more often with that particular position.
Yeah. And yet none of the jobs are paid. They're not really jobs. It's just
Yeah.
we're just making a map. we're
When we
trying
say
to
job,
log as much as possible. And
you are paid in thank yous.
yes, we're trying to log the war. And we could do a better job. And I really want to do a better job. But in order to do that, we need more people. Because I want to do a better job tracking stuff. Right now, I feel stretched way too much. I'm like doing too many things, and we need more people. We need people to to do some of the stuff I do, because I'm doing too much and I'm dying.
Literally. Yeah. That's a thing.
Yeah, you can message me on Twitter if you'd like to. Um,
And maybe like bigger picture, the value in doing things like this is that by logging the war and by having these things documented and geolocated, um, further down the line, when we get to look at um, legal proceedings and things like that, these are things that will honestly be used as evidence in these types of things. And if we've spent time to actually geolocate them and put them on a map and they're easy to find and people can find this information, it's a lot easier for people down the line trying to do that work.
yeah, and like for example, with the overnight reports, those reports are actually really important to track for a lot of reasons. First, they tell us information that we probably won't get from other sources. And second, when we do get information from other sources, like for example, the other day or like a week ago, we had a missile strike in basically the southern part of Sumi, and we were able to geolocate it um, by this sign right here that was it was 1 second of a like 8 minute long clip that they made talking about this area of Sumi getting hit by shelling and stuff. And we were able to geolocate this video of what is very obviously a war crime and connect this video of the war crime with the location and figure out exactly how and where this happened um, in Sumi based on that overnight report. Now the thing is that when I do the overnight reports, because I'm stretched way too thin, honestly. Like I really like doing those reports. I actually very much enjoy doing it, but I just don't have enough time to do it, and I kind of have to just do it as fast as possible. And I miss a lot of things. That's unfortunate. And I could have more sources. Like I'm using like maybe 70 or 80 sources or something, and I could easily be using 3 or 4 or 500. And that's the sort of thing that if we had a person who was just doing these reports, you could take like my like 80 sources or whatever it is and use those as a starting point and then build out more sources by focusing all of your time and effort on that one project and build out a much better view of everything. Because like for example, um, most of my sources are in the Zaporizhia and Kherson area, and I have some stuff in Kharkiv and lesser stuff in Sumy, and basically nothing in Chernihiv and like nothing in the west. So, like if someone else came, they could take my stuff that's like focused. Like I basically focus on the front line. They could go out and get more sources. They could get more sources from this area. They could get more sources from Western Ukraine, and and especially like Odessa, which I have very few sources on. Um, and we could get an even better picture of everything, and it would be wonderful. That'd be great.
We
Um,
should also point out that if somebody had a friend that they wanted to do a job like that with, it wouldn't have to be that you did every day. It could be that you had your friend and you guys switched off so that every second day you guys were doing it or whatever. Um, Having more of a team mentality and people to spread the load can be really helpful. Um, but any help is great.
yeah. So, anyway, so if you'd like to help the project, we're just trying to track a war, like all of the war at the same time. It's hard. Uh, like there are organizations that have like 100 dedicated employees and they're struggling and it's me, Dirk, and Gick right now, and we're dying. Anyways, would you like to talk about boat news?
I do want to talk about boat news. I even sent you a whole bunch of things so that
You did.
I could remember exactly what I wanted to talk about, because there's actually a lot of boat news. So we will start with yesterday. Gick says he's not dying, he's just German, just FYI. Anyway, yesterday there was an island class patrol boat. Sorry, it's technically a boat, not a ship. I don't know. Maybe it's a ship. Where's the break off between ship and boat? I don't know. It was hit by a Russian Zala Lancet. Uh, this is really unfortunate. I have seen that it was geolocated to Mykolaiv, as far as I can tell. I'm shocked that they could actually geolocate that. So good for them. If that's accurate. At any rate, it's not totally clear how much damage was done to that ship. When you look at the
I mean,
strike,
this isn't that hard. You get the whole coastline. Look at that.
yeah, huh? This is why Andrew geolocates and I do the skillless jobs. um, uh, when you look at the strike, it looks very much like it was targeting the radar and the comms stuff up at the top, which for survivability of the ship is kind of the best possible option that we could see there. It is, to my knowledge, from what I've heard, it is a new strike on a ship. It's unfortunate, but those types of things are going to happen. And as you can see, Andrew's been talking about this for a long time. There are Russian ISR assets up in the air. They are watching things that are going on, and that enables them to use some of their longer range drones to target things like this particular ship. That's an issue. There's a lot of ISR drones up in the air, and we are going to see more things like this further away from the line happening because they don't seem to have a really useful way of stopping that at the moment, unfortunately.
Thank you,
So it's
Tyler.
a
By the way, thank you, Tyler. I appreciate
thank
it.
you. I don't really have a lot more information on that. If anybody does have more information on that or sees more in the coming days, by all means, let me know. I assume that that ship will hopefully, as long as it wasn't overly damaged, be taken to some port somewhere and they'll try and repair it. But exactly where they can take it and have it not be targeted again is another whole issue. So we'll have to wait and see if more comes out about that one. The other story that we actually talked about,
Oh boy.
I think 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Sparta and the Yaz, and there's one other ship whose name I can't remember, that typically went from Novorossiysk to Tartus in Syria and delivered fuel and a whole bunch of other things in amongst their trips back and forth to Russia and to Syria. And this time they deviated and they're heading north. It looks like they're going to Kaliningrad. And for part of their trip, they actually had a escort by this Russian frigate, which makes you kind of ask the question, okay, why do they need an escort out in the Mediterranean? That's interesting. Maybe that's something we should keep an eye on. So other Russian ships that we see traveling that particular course, we'll probably keep an eye on them and see what they're being escorted by or if they're being escorted. Basically, just watching these ships and seeing what their new pattern is really interesting. And watching what else is coming out of Novorossiysk and its new pattern is also really interesting and something to kind of keep our eyes on. And then a few quick notes about the Ukrainian corridor. Number one is that it's really awesome to see that they have announced that they are going to um, open up the greater ports of Odessa for container transport, which, to be very clear, I'm not sure that a lot of people understand this. There has been container ships traveling back and forth on the Ukrainian corridor. There's not been a lot of them, but they absolutely have been traveling there. However, this announcement was made that they are essentially going to reopen those particular berths in the ports with the cranes, everything else. And they should be able to do a lot more exports that way. It still will be mainly agricultural exports and some imports that will come in that way. But having additional types of ships that they can bring in, which means additional types of products, is awesome and something we're looking forward to. And then second, with the corridor, as of, I believe it was today, they have opened up 24-hour operation for the corridor, which essentially will open up about an extra 20% of volume that'll be able to go in and out of the corridor. This is really quite amazing because the whole reason that we hadn't seen ships traveling at night through the Black Sea Grain Initiative, basically through every initiative that we've seen so far for any corridor, we have not seen ships, cargo ships, traveling at night. And a good portion of that reason was because it's much harder to see mines floating out in the middle of the water when you can't see anything because it's dark out. So the fact that the Navy has okayed this transit at night, and that should allow them an additional 20% of traffic into the corridor, just means that essentially it's one more step towards the Ukrainian corridor and Ukrainian ports operating as normal ports would. And quite frankly, like at some point, we're going to be watching this traffic and it's going to be so normal that it almost won't be worth reporting on anymore because it's just the way a normal port operates. And that's what we're really looking for in the long run. I think there was one more. Oh, yeah. So the very last one is a story out of Lloyd's List, London, from Bridget Daikun, who is lovely if you've ever had a chance to read any of her stuff. Oh, we're on to the next one. Sorry.
Sorry.
That's don't be.
Well, I was in the process of copying and pasting.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Bridget wrote a story this week just kind of noting that we had seen on different social media sources that there was kind of it was reported that the Russian government was kind of saying like, hey, you guys should deviate from what was the normal transit locations through the Black Sea. After those cargo ships saw USVs out out in the middle of the Black Sea, kind of shadowing some of the cargo ships, there was this report that they had kind of changed how they wanted that transit to happen. And so this ship traffic is now directly mirroring what those changes were, and they're doing exactly as suggested. So it implies that Ukrainian USVs are directly impacting how cargo ships and basically all ships heading to Russian ports actually transit the Black Sea. Why is this important? A, it means that they don't necessarily have freedom of navigation to the same degree that ships going to Ukrainian ports have freedom of navigation. They now have a fairly specified corridor that they have to travel that Russia is supposedly going to keep safe-ish. that's really interesting. That's something that Ukraine has done only with their USVs. It also means that from a bargaining perspective, we've seen Erdogan in Turkey talking to Lavrov when he was in Turkey last week and talking to for just a number of weeks about having some sort of security agreement between Ukraine and Russia that would guarantee safe passage for cargo ships and civilian merchant ships, essentially. And if Ukraine can force this sort of change with these cargo ships, it means there will be more pressure on the Russian government to actually agree to some sort of security agreement that would essentially make sure that there is safe passage for ships heading to either Russian ports or Ukrainian ports. It basically just gives Ukraine a much stronger bargaining position, which is the best thing that they could possibly hope for here in the Black Sea. So it'll be interesting to see if these changes that we're watching happening in cargo traffic actually impact those negotiations and impact whether or not Russia tries to do anything with the cargo ships that are heading to Odessa area ports. So, and it could, like, in the very hopeful sense of that discussion, it could even be the impetus for arguing that Russia shouldn't be hitting the port area of Odessa because that's where those cargo ships are actually moored in their berths. So, I mean, like in a pie in the sky version of that discussion, we would be hoping for even that kind of a agreement, security agreement between Russia and Ukraine. And I think that's all the ship news.
That's fantastic. Well, we have one ship related question.
Oh, good.
Do you think that they're shipping loafs to the, through this shipping corridor?
I have not personally seen loafs on ships.
Okay.
However, container ships go through this corridor, and inside containers, you could fit a loaf. So there's every argument to be made that there are loafs in that corridor.
Okay. You could make some saggy bread.
We could have a whole sea of sad loaves.
Yep.
Very sad loaves.
Yep. Big Baba says that the corridor is a lot more important now, given the recent EU ruling to curtail the Ukrainian agricultural exports.
Yeah, that also happened today. I'll write about it in my thread tonight, but they have been talking about bringing in tariffs on Russian agricultural exports or imports, I guess. I always get those two mixed up. But the extension of that is that they are also talking about possibly tariffing Ukrainian agricultural imports, and they have absolutely put restrictions on them overnight last night. They agreed to that in the EU Council, so that's absolutely not optimal right now.
Sad farmers got their way.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. I have so many opinions about that, but I'm going to write about that one day when I don't have a migraine. That is not today.
And David, he taught me something. I didn't know that Idaho's state motto was Esto. I don't know how they pronounce it. Esto perpetua. Is that how they pronounce it? I think so. Anyways, I had no idea that was their state motto. Although to be honest, I think I know like 3 state mottos. The best state motto is obviously "Live free or die."
It is like How do you beat that one, honestly?
It's the best one. They
Can
got
we
it.
all just adopt that? That feels like it should just be US wide state motto.
Yeah. So that's New Hampshire is live free or die. Yeah. Um yeah, I can't really think of many other than that, to be honest. That's just the best one. It's like all you need.
We should have a competition someday for like making up state mottos. That would be fun.
And Jackson Weber gave out 20 memberships. That was very kind of you. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Jackson.
All right. So yeah, that was the ship news. Um,
Mhm.
I guess we could also do the um I don't know what to call
My,
this. Is it the raid on Russia?
uh,
The
before we do that, maybe we
okay.
should just mention that mines and unexploded ordnance killed one
Oh yeah.
farmer today, and
Yeah.
maybe almost killed another farmer today.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So right here in Kherson, I'll go to the other map. Right here in Kherson, um, which was once pretty much the front line, really. Um, Posada Pokrovska. This was kind of the furthest most uh, town, city, whatever that Ukraine controlled. So this was like the edge of Ukrainian territory. And this whole section here was a gray zone that was going back and forth and back and forth. Tavriska was um, Russia captured it, and then Ukraine took it back, and then the fighting went out into these fields. So all these fields were basically the front line, and Alexandrivka was going back and forth and back and forth, and so yeah, so that's just kind of put things in perspective. So the front line was more or less like over here, and this town was a bit behind the front, but not that far behind the front on the Russian side. And I don't know exactly where it happened, but it was this town right here that a man took his cattle out to graze this morning, and in the process, he stepped on a mine and died. So that was right there. Also, this morning in Kharkiv, this was like on the edge of Kharkiv. In fact, it makes me wonder if this is actually the right town. I think it is, because I'll tell you what, I might be wrong. Okay, so I know it's in um, the county, whatever word you want to use, Romada, whatever, of Barvinkove. So it's in this county, and the town's name is Fedorivka. So it's in Fedorivka in this county, and this is the Fedorivka that I saw. There might be a second one. Who knows? It's Ukraine. There might be five. I have no idea. But anyways, in this town, or in a town called Fedorivka in that county, there was a farmer who was preparing his fields to plant, I think, or whatever, and he crashed into a mine on his tractor. The tractor exploded, and this is the remains of the tractor. And he was rushed to the hospital. The hospital being in this city, and I don't know his condition, to be honest, but he was wounded.
so yeah, mines suck, especially for farmers.
Yeah, I think there may have been more mine-related news recently. Well, there was more Sapper news today. Um, in Venezia, roughly around that city, uh, there's a shahed that was shot down and did not explode. They disposed of the body and they found the warhead and disposed of the warhead. That's pretty cool. Now, this is really interesting to me. This happened a few days ago, and I put it on my map the day it happened, but a Shahed crashed into the top of a building in Kryvyi. It crashed through the roof and into the building and did not explode, but it ended up with a warhead in the stairwell of this building. Now, the reason this is interesting is because we don't often see what the kinetic energy of a drone can do to a building,
Mhm.
particularly the roof of a building. This is obvious. There's no explosive here. This is just kinetic energy. This is just a drone falling out of the sky into the roof, and it went straight through. If you can remember, there may have been another place where a drone crashed through the roof of a building and may have done something. But anyways, so it's just interesting. Just made a little hole, you know. Yeah. And then there's more mine related news. In Kyiv, they've been doing lots of demining work. They're very proud of it. There's this little article you can click and read from yesterday about that. Um, was there other mine related news yesterday? I think there was. Yeah, there's more sappers. Um, See, when I saw this, I immediately made the joke of a shell harvest. But I didn't say it yesterday because I thought it would be like crossing a line or something to say a joke about it. But then today, this morning, the sappers made a joke about it, so I felt safe making the joke. But yeah, they've been just going around collecting lots of artillery shells. They said that they cleared 13,000 hectares of, well, they surveyed 13,000 hectares in the Kherson region, and they diffused almost 43,000 explosives. And that would be in this area, basically, um, which is, again, used to be with the Frontline, but not anymore. So that's all
And
interesting.
enough to the front line that they are very much in danger while they're doing that work.
Yes, there are sappers who get killed by Russian shelling in the process of these things. Um, I'm looking for other mine related news because there's always news like every day. I've been putting lots of mine related news on the map recently. That's not super interesting. It's just kind of basic info. By the way, all of these blue markers are Shahed attacks. Not necessarily the Shahed hitting, but these are locations where Shaheds are shot down, or at least attacked. Um, I'll keep going back in time. Um, they got a KH-101 warhead and took that out. Yep. So I think that's all the mining news for the past few days. Yep. Mining news. Today there's kind of a mine. This wasn't a mine, but it's kind of like a mine in that where was that? Oh, it was over here. On this road between these two towns here, um, a this little van was attacked. There are two sources here. I put both sources. It was attacked by an FPV drone, and it wounded a 57-year-old woman and a 58-year-old man. I I assume they were married, but anyways, so the Russians attacked this van with an FPV drone, and it turned out that they were just random civilians, basically. So I think that's that. Also, I couldn't geolocate this. I also only had like 30 seconds to do it, and I couldn't find it in those 30 seconds. But a KH-59 missile was targeted at and did a lot of damage to this um, solar panel array, which was kind of random because it's like a cruise missile. They shot a cruise missile at a solar panel, basically, which is weird to me.
Yeah, that's crazy weird. Huh.
So that's all the news. And if you like look at these blue markers, these are like where the Shaheeds have been going recently. Also, there's the Shahed markers. The Shahed markers I put when there's a known Shahed hit, and the blue markers are just we know the Shahed flew there, and we know that there's air defense. And they're not exact. They're like very rough. Like you could put like a probably a 50-kilometer radius circle around each of these dots. They're not exact, but it kind of tells you where the Shaheeds have been going recently. It was like the one attack around Dnipro, and then the next attack kind of went more west, and then there's kind of not much that day, and then not much this day, although they did hit Dnipro, but they shot down one, and then the following day they lots went west and some hits along the way, and so this is just kind of Shahed tracking. And that Shahed tracking is done by our friends, the Shahed tracking Twitter account. That's where it comes from.
Who is a super great follow, by the way. I totally recommend.
Yeah. So there's that.
Let's talk about Russia,
Yeah.
shall we?
Well,
How many losses are there today, Andrew?
it just makes me sad. Things like this make me sad. Like I don't know if you see that well. Here, I'll let's zoom in a little bit. See, things like this make me sad. In that this is a Ukrainian tank that they backed up into a hole in the ground and then abandoned it with the hatches open, and then they dropped a grenade in it. Great. That happened right here. I'd like to have you know that also approximately right there, another Ukrainian tank drove into a hole in the ground, and then Russia dropped a bomb on it, and the tank exploded. So that's cool. They were also dropping some bombs over here, blowing up random stuff. So I don't understand the purpose of these attacks, to be honest. Like I don't really understand the purpose. I know that there's these sorts of events that make people happy, I guess, and you see Russian airstrikes in Russia. If that makes you happy, then congrats. You see Russia posting footage of Ukrainian forces in Russia. So in this building, basically, um, we have footage of Ukrainians engaging tanks in Russia. We have footage of Russian drones hitting Russian houses in Russia. So if this sorts of footage gets you off, then congrats. Here's another more footage of a Ukrainian tank falling in a hole. It happens more than you think. So the losses that Ukraine has suffered include, I've lost count on how many. Something like 5 engineering vehicles slash armored recovery vehicles. Some of them may have been recovered. In all fairness, they've lost several tanks. I've lost count, like 5, 6, 7 tanks or something. Several of them, the fallen. Well, I think most of the tanks fell in a hole. I think one tank was exploded, like in combat. One tank hit a mine, and I think the rest all fell in the hole. BMPs falling in holes, etc. So, and then you also lost a helicopter. Um, I think you lost a helicopter, a Me-24, which was a valuable helicopter that was lost. And there's also the unfortunate consequence of the civilians being caught. And I guess that's something that we didn't really talk about before, but the civilians are having to be evacuated. Many of them are disabled old people, basically. Um, Old women, old men, disabled, can't walk. They have to be carried out by police, basically. And every single day, we're getting footage of these people being evacuated. Um, the Sumi government announced, I think yesterday or maybe the day before, that there had been 200 bombs dropped on Sumi since the beginning of these attacks. I'm not sure what that averages out to per day. It's probably like 40 or 50 per day, including knocking out a bunch of critical bridges in this area. They did that early on. They took out one bridge with a missile. They took out another bridge with airstrikes. So, all in all, we have evidence that these yellow areas may be gray areas. Maybe the gray area should be bigger. I don't know, dude. Like, it's not, you know, I'm not really sure how to map it, to be honest. But I have not seen any evidence of them expanding past the areas that I have marked. Um, they've they ran to this the school over here and tore down the flag, and now they've run a few. They've guys taking photos and videos, doing foot patrols through the town, etc. So it makes me wonder what exactly is the purpose of all this, and do the losses justify what they've accomplished? Personally, I don't think they do. There have been some video, particularly yesterday, of Ukrainian forces engaging. And when you first look at the video, it does very much look like they're engaging in Russia. But they weren't in Russia, they were actually in Ukraine. There, it was right here. So there's that. And I don't know. I just think this is all a total waste of resources. Personally, I don't really see the purpose. I don't see this having any political impact. I just see the casualties, and when I say that, I don't necessarily mean the infantry casualties because I don't even know how to measure that. To be honest, there have been quite a few casualties. I don't know how many though. But the vehicle losses are just too much. They're too much. It's absurd. Like it like I haven't done. I don't know for sure, but it feels like they've lost as many vehicles attacking these positions as they've lost like defending um Berdichi or Levka, which are like critically important frontline towns. like it feels like they have like as many losses in those in both areas because like in Berdichi, I think they lost like two engineering vehicles and I don't know, like four or five tanks and some artillery pieces. And these attacks on Russia are like roughly the same. It's like, except Berdici is actually extremely vitally important, and these attacks, like, what's even the purpose? Yeah, yeah, and Russia has forces here to deal with this. You're exactly right. They're not attacking a weak spot. Like, Russia is fully prepared to defend against this, especially given the size of the attacks. Because it seems to me that these attacks are maybe a battalion total. Maybe, maybe two battalions. But I don't even know if it's that many. It kind of looked like there was one company that attacked and took very serious casualties. Like, it honestly looked like they took like 30 casualties, which in a company is a disaster. It's like losing a third of your company. It's like losing a whole platoon, you know? So, um, and then I imagine these other attacks may be of similar size. So it could end up being a total of like 4 to 6 companies, maybe. Uh, but yeah, I just don't like it. I don't like it. It makes me upset. Like, thinking about this, I just don't like it. I don't see the purpose of it. There was the comment from Putin where he said that he wanted to like send elite troops here to like make sure it never happens again or whatever he said. I can't remember exactly what the words were. If he did that, like if he actually sent elite troops here, it would be a win for Ukraine because then those elite troops wouldn't be doing something useful. Because defending the border is like, it's not useful to either side, honestly. Like, um, because neither side is doing actual, attacks on these borders. Like, these are like small raids. And personally, I find it just really annoying that people are saying that these are not Ukrainian forces. Like, it, it annoys me that people are like, no, they're Russian. They're not. I mean, like, like, are they Russian? Are they not Russian? Because we've seen videos that there was like a German guy there, right? There's it's probably a bunch of different people attacking for all their own reasons. Um, I prefer to refer to them as Ukrainian forces. Just like there's legions in the standard Ukrainian army that like this company may be from Brazil or something, and we still call them Ukrainian forces because they're fighting for the Ukrainian army. Ugh. Anyways, they've taken serious casualties. They lost a very valuable helicopter. They've lost engineering equipment. They've lost tanks. They've lost infantry fighting vehicles. They've lost a number of infantry, probably upwards of a platoon. And in return, they have moved potentially 2 towns into a gray area. There's arguments for a third town also being in a gray area. And that's all I got. That's all I'd say about it. Could they be trying to set up another crinky? That would be ideal if they could set up another crinky. But I don't think they will. First off, I don't think these areas are as good for making a crinky type thing. Like because the reason crinky is so good, the reason it's doing so well, is because there's basically two roads in. You can go through the forest, but it's just more difficult. Um, there's basically two main roads in plus this forest, and Russia can't get enough forces into the town to do what they want to do. So it's like there's these natural bottlenecks because Ukraine's Ukraine has the high ground advantage on the other side of the river where they can oversee everything that goes on, and they use that advantage to completely control this highway or this road to the south. But this road is like almost unusable for Russia. And similarly, they can control this road to the north, and they force Russia to go through the forest, which is difficult. And even in the forest, Russia takes huge casualties. So they can never really mount up a big enough presence in Krinky to push Ukraine out. That's why Krinky is so useful. That's why it's been so successful. But these towns, I don't see any of those advantages. In a sense, you could argue that there's really one road in, but like, is there though? Because you can, there might only be one road in, but it like splits out in lots of different ways, and there's no like real forest you can use. There is this forest here, but I don't think it's really the same in the layout, etc. Because Ukraine would have to like move through this town to get into the forest, and they don't control that town. So anyway, and the same goes here. So and this definitely has two roads. So you don't have that advantage. You don't have the high ground advantage where they're overlooking everything, and Ukraine also doesn't have the drone advantage. If they had the drone advantage, that'd be a different story. Like if Ukraine were here firing off just thousands and thousands of drones per day and building this buffer where they're just shutting down everything that enters and and then they can establish themselves, that would be one thing. So I don't think they have the terrain advantage, but I think you could do it even without it if you had the drones, but I don't see them having the drones either, and they definitely do not have the artillery advantage. Yeah, there's definitely an info delay on everything. But when you say that there is a delay, you know the delay can cut both ways. Just keep that in mind. The delay can go either direction. Because it could be that Ukraine's not even in Russia anymore. But if you're the type of person who just likes watching Russia drop hundreds of bombs on their own towns, if you like watching a Russian tank drive into a Russian town and blow up a bunch of houses in the in a Russian town. Where's that? I can't remember where that was. Trying to like find the video. Is this it? No. Where was that? It doesn't.
Which, to be clear, these are houses probably with Russian people in them, right?
I think the Russians evacuated.
Oh, okay.
Although I guess there could be old people still. Where was that? Anyways, it's somewhere. There was a video of a Russian tank just driving up and blasting a bunch of houses. I can't remember what day it was or where it was. So those are two hindrances I have personally. Yeah. Anyways, so this is gonna really annoy me if I can't find it. I'm gonna look at my other map and be right back. Because I now it's just bothering me. Uh, uh, where was it?
And this is how you end up with a math project, folks. You
Just
have this one thing that is like bothering you, and you can't let it go because you're that type of person. And all of a sudden, it's 2 years later, and you have a map project, and you're like,
I
I can't find this dot.
I found it. This is the video. So this is a Russian tank in Russia. Um, yeah, this is just right. This is all Russia. Everything you see is Russia. It just rolled up and just started blasting houses. Like, imagine like being forcefully evacuated by Putin, and then some point in the future, when I imagine Ukraine leaves, you like go back to your house. You're like, what happened? There's a you look up the video. You're like, Putin, what'd you do to my house? Anyways, so tank just rolled up blasting houses. That happened on the 16th. Oops, wrong button. Okay. So there's that. Urban renewal. That's right. Urban renewal. That's what they'll call it. Anyways, so another story that is interesting is that a few days ago, I believe Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember which. I think it was Saturday though. Ukraine withdrew from Orlivka and set up on the other side of this river stream, whatever it is. And so they withdrew from Orlivka and set up a defensive line here. Well, they already had a defensive line there, but anyways, they withdrew. They had some um, rear guard screening units type people, um, holding the Russians back for a few days. And yesterday well, actually, it was the day before yesterday, Sunday, they formally left. And yesterday, Russia declared that they captured this ground. So over the past few days, Ukraine has been withdrawing from Orlivka, and they're using the defensive line on the other side of this river, which I believe is the high ground for this area. In fact, I guess we could look at the 3D. Um, let's go. Let me find it.
In the terms of good, bad, doesn't really matter, how do you rate this one?
Well, if you believe the Ukrainians, it's good. Whether you believe them or not is another story. Okay, so Flirks and yeah, this is so they basically retreated to the high ground. So now there is this water between them and the Russians, and they are on high ground. They claim the Russian, no, the Ukrainian claim is that they have established what they call a kill box in the northwestern part of the town. So, like right here, they claim that they have a kill box and that whenever the Russians go in, they get destroyed. Whether that's true or not, I guess we'll find out. So, yeah, that's the most current change to the map, really. The other day, there was a an interesting attack on Krasnohorivka. Not Krasnohorivka. It was Novomykolivka. Um, this attack I found super interesting, and in it, Well, in the video, I found 11 new abandoned and/or destroyed vehicles from for Russia. Um, I don't think I can show the video, but basically what they did is they had one part of the attack. I don't know what order any of this happened in, but they had one part of the attack where they moved up this central road, which if you know anything about this road, they lost so many vehicles on this road. And they lost another one. It hit a mine, I think, or maybe an FPV drone, but it hit right there and was abandoned. Later on in the attack, they had a tank rolling up this road, and I think it hit a mine, and I believe it was abandoned as well, right there. Um, then at another point in the attack, they pushed up a whole bunch of vehicles up this field. One BMP was destroyed, and something else was abandoned, and they pushed on up. And so they basically started in the south. They moved their way up. They split out in like a Y, like this, and one Y like went out and around. So as it went out, one hit a mine, and then the other one ran around and turned around and hit a mine too. So two of them hit the mines, and then other vehicles did the same thing over here, but they apparently survived, and they dropped off a bunch of infantry. There was a tank that came up here, and the tank was doing tank things, shooting stuff, etc. And so that was one part. That was another part of the attack. Another part of the attack, they pushed vehicles up this kind of strip here. They lost two right here. One apparently hit a mine. The other probably also hit a mine. Not really sure. But both of them were disabled and abandoned. Later on in the attack, they had more vehicles push into this town. Um, One was already abandoned before the attack, that but was previously unknown, and another one hit a mine. So, um, yeah. So that's kind of the vehicle part of what happened. In addition to all of that, they dumped out a bunch of infantry into this forest strip, and they also there's a trench system that kind of runs out on this diagonal. They dumped infantry into that trench system, and they also dumped some infantry into this tree line. So that was the attack. It seemed like a total failure to me. It's hard to judge. And yeah, this was who's the yeah, this was the 79th Brigade. You can go watch the video if you'd like to. So that's like the BMP that was abandoned. You can get another angle. Yeah, this was uh this was the tank. So you see a tank there. You can barely see it, but they hit a mine. And yeah, that's that. That's all the vehicles. These are the ones that kind of split out into like that Y shape. You can see how they kind of drive down and turn around, drive back. This guy, uh, he hit a mine while they were driving north. And this one, he went and turned around and hit a mine right next to his friend. So, you know, smart. And then here you can see how they split into this Y shape, and he hits a mine right there. So, smart. So yeah, that was a big attack.
I'm continually amazed every single time I see one tank hit a mine and then the other tank following it tries to go around it and predictably hits a mine as well.
Yeah.
I I don't understand. Like clearly they're not seeing all the evidence we're seeing.
You just gotta keep driving, right? If it's your time to go, it's your time to go. You just keep driving.
That's one way to look at it. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and these vehicles might not be MTLBs. I think they are MTLBs, but it's just really hard to tell. It's like this is the image we're working with here. It looks like an MTLB to me, but maybe it's a BMP. It just seems very MTLB-ish. Like we've talked before about how they chop the back of the MTLB off and then put those like improvised box on the back, and that's what this looks like to me. These look like those improvised boxes um, that you go in and they transport you like cattle, right? And then they like open up the box and say, "Get out of here." But if you're cold, the engine is totally exposed and you can go touch it, right?
Or dig in underneath it and wait for an FPV drone,
You can
whichever.
you can do that too. Um, yeah, I think that's all like the interesting stuff that I want to talk about. There's probably more stuff that Gick wants me to talk about. But Gick isn't here, so
Given what time it is for the German, it may be that he actually has gone to bed.
yeah, yeah. So there was one amusing event that happened today. It involved. I swear we mapped it. Here, give me a second.
I should note the fact that Gick went to bed is proof that Andrew is quite nice and does let people who work for him sleep once in a while.
Only sometimes. You have to pick between um, food and
Sleeping and
sleep.
eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where? Oh, I. It was yesterday. That's why I was confused. Yeah. It was yesterday. Yeah. Okay. Did I only map one of them? Oh, whatever. So this video is amusing. I'm sure most people have seen it already, but I just want to show it. Because it's important. Not really important. It's just fun. Oh boy. What have I done? Okay. This is the wrong video. Let me get the right video. This is the wrong video. Uh, Let me find it. Brem 1. Okay. So here you can see a Brem, and a 122.
Otherwise known as a not Brem.
No, 122 is probably the best tank that Ukraine has. Probably up there. It is the Swedish version of a Leopard 2A5. Uh, Fun fact: all of the 122s have a name and a personality, and they were beloved. So if you are a Swedish tanker and you see this, it breaks your heart. It makes you cry. Actual tears, not fake ones. But anyways, so basically, they were trying to steal the 122 for propaganda purposes. The 122, I believe, is destroyed at this point, and Ukraine has took out the Brems. A Brem is an armored recovery vehicle. I believe it's on a T-64 chassis, I think, and it has a little arm, a little crane for picking up turrets and stuff like that, and engines, and really high.
Brems are,
What's that?
I said Brems are really important, like just from a logistics standpoint and a recovery standpoint, they are really, really important. So losing two of them in one is no good.
Yeah. Neither of these Brems are destroyed, but they are abandoned, and the 122 is very sad looking. So that was a fun thing that happened. There was also another destroyed vehicle way in the background, and we have no clue what that was. Right. So, and here is another thing where I stated in the past that I like mapping a whole MRL strike because it gives you, I think it helps give you the impression of what an MRL strike looks like its size, how big of an area they hit. So this is a grad strike. This is what a grad strike hits. Just one volley from a grad, like one grad probably. So it just it hit the entire town basically, everything. Anyways, that's kind of more or less all I have to talk about, to be honest. There's other stuff, but it's just kind of boring to me that I don't really want to get into it. Like there's combat in places and things going on. There's the Russian advance near Verbova where I feel like I mapped it pretty well the first time, and I don't know any changes since then. There's been weirdness going on in Rabatina. I've seen people claiming that Ukraine controls this trench line and the trench line over here, and that Russia controls everything in the middle, which is weird. But I guess it's possible given the events going on. It's just so hard for me to understand the timeline of everything. I guess I should just mark it as a big gray area. Maybe I should mark everything a gray area. It's all very confusing.
Um, the obviously ammo has been an issue for the Ukrainian side for quite some time. Are we seeing anything that leads you to believe that there's been a change in that recently?
Well, the Ukrainians that I hear from, they say that they're shooting more, that there is more ammo already. I don't really know what that means. And they're not shooting that much. They said that like before they would get a quota of like 20 shells, and now they get a quota of like 200. And 200 is still not enough. They probably need like 1,000. You know what I mean? So
But it is better than 20, and it's better than smoke rounds.
well, I wish they had smoke rounds.
Well, I mean,
It's,
depends on your need, really.
yeah. Yeah, the from what I understand around Bakhmut, it's more or less stabilized. I've heard that Ukraine advanced like 100, 200 meters in Bogdanivka, and Ivanivska is not good. It's not a good situation in the town. But for Russia to advance, they have to break through. Um, Russia's having trouble in the town itself. Apparently, they're just getting clobbered by FPV drones. Artillery barrels. I don't know the artillery barrel situation. I know the U.S. is supplying artillery barrels as quickly as they make them. It's basically as soon as it comes off the factory floor, they send it to Ukraine. And frankly, Ukraine's just not shooting that much, so they they might like they may have more barrels than they need at this point. I have no idea. But but yeah, obviously the U.S. only supplies barrels for like the M777 and whatnot. Um, the other guns, uh, I guess those countries would have to send the barrels. Like I have no clue what's going on with the Soviet barrels. Like that is a complete mystery to me. Like, are they even caring about their like 122 millimeters, like their gvozdikas, etc.? Like maybe they don't even care. It seemed the way Ukraine uses the gvozdika really makes me think that they just do not care about that vehicle at all because they don't like they don't they don't use camo nets. They don't use like defenses at all. They don't even camouflage it. They just like here it is. Come get it. Um I mean, we heard in like 2015 that those barrels were worn out already. And I don't even know the state of those vehicles. They may not even be worth shooting. I have no clue. But then there's other vehicles like the Crab and the AS-90. I imagine Poland and the UK supply barrels. I think they both use the same gun because it's the same turret. So I imagine they are supplying barrels. Hopefully, I'm not really sure. And yeah, and like the Caesars and the Archers. I mean, that'd be up to France, I guess. I don't know how, if they're supplying barrels or not. The Caesars, I don't know how often they shoot. Um, so they may not even need barrels that often.
Would they have production capacity for some of the Russian barrels from before the full scale invasion? Because presumably they would have been using some of those.
I
Uh,
don't think they could make barrels.
oh, okay.
I don't think Russia can make barrels.
That sounds problematic.
I've never heard anything about Russia making barrels. I feel like every time I look into whether they can make a barrel, the answer is always no. But maybe I was just missing something. Like maybe I don't know. Like I'm not an expert on that, but I'm not sure Russia can make barrels. Every time we hear about Russian barrels, it's them taking a barrel from storage. Like they go to like for a Mista, they will go to a Mista B and they'll take the barrel from the Mista B and put it into the Mista S. The Mista B is the towed gun variant of the Mista S, which is a self-propelled gun.
Hmm.
And the same is true for like would it be the D30 I think goes into the Gwastika and I think there's towed and SPG variants of each gun. They take the towed version, put it into the SPG because the SPG is worth more. What do I think Ukraine's goals should be this year? I think Ukraine's goals should be pretty simple. First, they need to mobilize, which I hear is going to happen soon. Second, they need to invest in the lives of their soldiers. And that means better defenses, better training, and better medical supplies. And third, they need to rehabilitate the public image of their brigades so that they can encourage people to sign up for recruitment so they don't have to mobilize people. Those are the three things that they have to do. They don't need an offensive. They don't need to capture a city. They don't need any of that. What they need to first get more soldiers. Second, make sure the soldiers don't die. And third, rehabilitate their public image because people have largely lost faith in the military. Not all of the military, but parts of it. There's some brigades that people really appreciate, like the 47th Brigade has been very popular recently, and other brigades that people don't trust at all. And it's in part because of the public image of the brigades. So if your brigade is seen as a winner and people want to be part of that, and if your brigade is seen as a loser, people don't want to join because they feel like they're signing up to die and they don't want to do that. So they need to rehabilitate their public image so that people are willing to join. And in order to do that, part of the deal is that you have to prove to them that you're not going to throw their life away, so that you have to train them, you have to give them good supplies, and you have to give them a chance. You have to give them the right defenses and stuff, the right weapons, so they're not hopeless. And also part of that is that Ukraine needs Western support so they can have ammo and stuff so that they feel like it's not a hopeless situation. So all of those things I think should be Ukraine's priority. Is it's basically morale. It's and keeping your soldiers alive. Yeah. Anyways, that's kind of all I have to say. I'm sure Gick is gonna make fun of me. He's gonna say, "Why didn't you talk about this? Why didn't you talk about that?" There's been attacks in the south. There's been attacks near Trinity, but this is it's, all the other news. It just feels like things that keep happening over and over again. What do I think of Sersky? I don't really care. Like Sersky means nothing to me. Like honestly, the top level command, I mean, to an extent, it's important. The reason that I liked Zaluzhny is because he united so many different factions in Ukraine. The people genuinely respected him. They felt that he had their interests in mind. And I think that was a valuable thing. But beyond that, I don't really care. Yeah, Russia, from my understand, Russia was producing barrels, but the rumor is that they were using substandard steel and the barrels weren't very good. I don't know if that's true, but that's generally what is said about their barrels, that they're using substandard steel. And you have to keep in mind that the steel used in these things are really high grade. Like it's really difficult to manufacture the type of steel necessary, especially like for ammo. People underestimate the quality of steel you need to make an artillery shell because it's actually really high quality steel because it needs to be it needs to have the right properties to both be accurate and to make the right sorts of shrapnel and whatnot. And it has to also have the right properties to be workable in your machinery so it doesn't break your machinery. Which I think the lower quality steels, I believe that's what happens is that it wears out the machinery and that makes it so that you can't produce as much of it because you have to constantly be doing maintenance. Anyways, that's all I have to talk about for today. I hope you enjoyed our stream today. And thank you, Exit, for the boat news.
Thanks for having me. I love coming and doing the stream with you.
I'm gonna stop the stream now. Thank you for coming, everybody. And if you enjoyed it or parts of it, you can feel free to share it with people or share those parts with people, the part you liked. And see you later. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.